Welcome to Extra Blue. I'm your host, Elena Soneson. Last I shared, I was wrapping up an altitude training camp in Colorado and heading back to sea level for an intensity block. I'm not one who particularly loves racing at altitude, but I sure do love training at high altitude and then coming down to sea level, and I get to feel like a superhuman then. It is so much fun. You get to push yourself in workouts harder and for longer duration. And when you thought you could only do 6 intervals, you can actually do 7 or 8. And sometimes it's hard to stop yourself when you get the momentum going. But of course, you cannot push yourself for forever. So I wrapped up my intensity block last week and I flew out east for a friend's wedding and am taking a few more days to chill after such a big month of training. And I feel like this is kind of the tipping point where we make this switch from summer training into fall training. And even though a lot of the workouts are the same and the day-to-day feels the same, there are slightly different tweaks that we start making in our training and start building and preparing for winter. And personally, I just think it's a really fun time of year. So I'm excited for this.
This podcast is powered by Gear West, a specialty sports campus which has supported and inspired me for years. If you're near Minneapolis, their incredible 25,000 square foot store is just about 5 minutes west of Ridgedale and offers the largest Nordic selection in the country. And no matter where you are, their website is a fantastic resource for learning, motivation, and the gear. Everything you need to chase your goals in Nordic and alpine skiing, biking, running, and all kinds of cross training. Check out gearwest.com. I'm super grateful to have their support, and as a reminder, you can now watch these episodes on Gear West's YouTube channel.
On this episode of Extra Blue, I welcome guest Mary Kate Cirelli, usually gone by MK. MK and I go way back to our college days at the University of Vermont. We overlapped as catamounts for 2 years on the ski team, and we instantly became really good friends. I immediately looked up to MK for her work ethic, her constant smile, her ability to keep everything so real. And she and I pushed each other in workouts and on the race course while also supporting each other and lifting one another up. MK was pretty quickly honest with me about some of the struggles she had endured over the years with disordered eating and her time at another college. And she wasn't afraid to own her mistakes, to live vulnerably, and to share the realities of dealing with pressure at such a young age. On this episode, we talk about disordered eating and her path to recovery. We also talk about what it's like to carry that with you for the years to come. How it's nearly impossible to never let it affect you again, but that it also doesn't need to define you. We also talk about MK's challenges on another college team and how she navigated that, as well as the struggles that occur when moving on from full-time sport. MK now lives in Burlington, Vermont with her husband, Kevin Drury, a Canadian ski cross athlete, along with their 2 dogs and a cat, whom you may hear give their support during this episode. I appreciate MK's willingness to share her story on Extra Blue, and we both agree that we hope this episode serves as awareness to the realities of disordered eating as an athlete and how a support system can make a huge impact. So please join me in welcoming MK Cirelli. MK Cirelli, welcome to the Extra Blue podcast. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. It's something I've been looking forward to for a long time, and finally have my act together to figure it out. And so I'm just really excited to bring you on and chat about lots of good things. There's also going to be some tough things, but I appreciate you being so willing to share your experience and your story, and can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, I'm flattered and honored to be here and really hoping that some of what I have to say today resonates and or helps anyone that may or may not have been in my shoes as a skier.
Yeah, I really think it will. And I think that in sharing stories like this, you know, awareness is the first step. And I think that it has incredible power to take bigger steps from there. And so I just appreciate again you being so willing to talk about some of these things. But before we dive into the serious stuff, I just want to check in and see how you're doing, what your day's been like so far, and what you've been up to.
Day's been good. I mean, I'm soaking up every ounce of warm weather, so pretty standard Monday. Up at 5, feeding all the pets. Um, Went on a run with my friend. I had the gym already, which was great, so I had a little more time, and then got back from the run and quickly rinsed off and got myself into the gym, and then dog walks, and here I am. So pretty regimented day, but that's okay. I'm pretty type A, so it
Yeah,
shakes out.
we love a good routine, and it's a great
Yeah.
routine. And it is a freaking
Yeah.
productive and efficient routine too. The amount that you can get in done before like 9 a.m. is insane to me. It's so impressive.
Yeah, it is a lot. It blows my mind sometimes when I look back on it. I'm like, wow, good for you.
It's so impressive. Well, okay, so I wanted to ask how much you're running these days, and it sounds like you are running. So how's that going for you? And also then how much are you in the gym, like doing your own gym workout?
Yeah, so I mean, I have nothing I'm training for currently with running. So after the Vancouver Marathon, I was like, wow, let's just let's just have fun with running. So I really don't have a ton of time in the morning. Like if I get an 8 mile run in, that is like a bonus.
Mhm.
So I would say a couple times a week I'll sneak in 7, and then some mornings it's like 3 to 4. So not majorly huge mileage for me right now. Like for me, 40 to 50 is a great week. I know for a lot of people, they're like, well, that's a lot. But um, that's kind of the running thing. And I did get the Peloton treadmill, which I'm absolutely loving. So
Oh,
that's kind of
that's
been
cool.
exciting in the mornings when it's getting dark or rainy or whatever. And then in terms of strength training, I would say probably like every other day. I do a lot of my own classes so I can test them out. So I do like to try to do them before people do them, but it's not sustainable to do every day. So every other day or so, strength
Yeah.
training.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're getting out there, you're getting the fresh air, you're getting the movement in, and you're also getting the strength training in, and it seems like the
Yeah.
perfect balance. Can you tell us a little bit more about HIIT performance training?
Yeah, it's my garage. Um, where to begin with this? I think my husband and I always had a dream of having kind of our own gym. And before we built the garage gym, it was just a guest room in our basement. It's amazing how much we fit down there. But I had been working at Noom for quite a few years, moved to another job where I was getting recertified for my personal training certificate. And it was within that job that I realized that I wanted to work for myself. And we were already building the gym, and I thought, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to take a risk and try to build something. And I just kind of went for it, and word of mouth spread. I started out with personal training. That seemed kind of the easiest way to get my foot in the door. And then, word of mouth did its beautiful thing, and I started having group classes. And now it's a fully functioning group fitness personal training gym. So I was looking at it today, and I think I'm close to almost 70 members between personal training and group fitness. So it's become my full-time job.
That's so impressive. And I just have to say, like, you call it a garage gym, but it is like the most epic gym space ever in such an incredible space. Like one, the energy that's in the space, like when you walk in, is so inviting and also inspiring. There are like Olympic bibs from your husband and other of his teammates, and then there are posters of like Jesse on the wall,
Yeah.
and then there are like UVM accolades from your own experience, and just like you go in there and you're like, yeah, we're gonna have a good workout, and also then like the amount of equipment that you put into the space, and not in a way where it feels overcrowded. It just is like, oh gosh, I wish I had this band. Oh, there's a bunch of bands there. Like, oh man, like it'd be nice to have this in a kettlebell. Oh, there's a kettlebell. Like, it's amazing what you have. put together. And I love coming to your garage to work
Oh,
out.
thanks. Yeah, I
And
suppose it's considered boutique fitness, which always
yeah,
makes me laugh because it's my garage. But
yeah,
we have put a lot of work into making it a space that can accommodate the elitist athletes to those that have never worked out before. So wide variety of makes and models come through the doors every day.
yeah. It's so cool. And okay, so you said that you're doing both, individual classes and group classes or individual training. Um, and you also mentioned that oftentimes you are doing these strength workouts before they come in. So what does that look like when you're like building a plan or building a session? How much are you testing the different exercises? Are you going through like the entire workout before everyone comes?
If I have time, I will definitely try to go through the whole workout. The beauty of being a one woman show and having a relatively small community is that I know every single person that comes in the door. I know what they can do. I know what they can't do. I know what they shouldn't do and might still try to do. I know what injuries they have. I know what things have been achy. So when I look at my roster for the day, I plan my workouts around the people that are coming. So let's see. For example, like last night, I was like, "Hey, Kev, do you want to try the workout with me?" I just wrote it up, and then I will do it with him, do the workout with him. If we have time, we'll run through the whole thing. If we don't, I'll just like rip a lap of the workout. But I'm at the point now where I don't necessarily need to do the workouts because I know that people are going to be able to do it and be pushed. One of the reasons that I like to do the workouts is so I can give them my personal feedback and take.
Right.
And one of my biggest rules as a coach is if I can't do it, I'm not going to program it. Not because I don't believe that they can do things that I can't do, but I don't like to try to coach things that I don't feel confident doing
Hmm.
myself.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's really cool to be able to write workouts that are for the people, um, and everything that encompasses what they need, which
Yeah.
I think is special and not as common at most studios.
Yeah, I mean, you think of going to like a Lifetime Fitness or something like that, and you're going to a workout class, like they don't know what injury you're dealing with. They don't know, like, oh, you're training for a marathon, or oh, you're training for your first 5K, or maybe you're just in the gym because you want to be, fit, or you're coming back from surgery. Like they have no idea. And then even if you do go to a smaller, more like boutique place, like to have this type of one-on-one where like you are the one woman show, which is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, no kidding.
But like you have this direct relationship with everyone who walks through that door, and everyone who walks through that door feels that warmth and support from you. And they trust, like, okay, MK's got my back. MK's going to push me today, but she's going to push me because she believes, like, this is how much I can be pushed. And what I've just seen in my time, like when I visit Vermont and when I come say hi to you in Burlington, I just see this community that you're building with the gym. And, these folks walk into your door and the dog is coming up to say hello and, and they love saying hi back to the dog. And, your cat's kind of lurking in the
Oh
background
my
of the
God, yeah,
workouts.
classic. Yeah.
But everyone is so excited to be there. And, they're like running laps up and down the street, the cul-de-sac that you live on. And, it's just like everyone comes with a smile on their face and they, I'm sure, are bringing like baggage from their day or from whatever else is going on in life, but they come and they're like, I'm here to be coached by MK. And uh, I I'm curious, like, what is it like for you to interact with those folks on a day-to-day basis and to build those relationships with them over time?
Well, it's the best part of my job. I'd be lying if I said I wake up every morning and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get in the gym. That is so far from the truth. But I will say, when I walk into the gym and I see the faces of the people that I get to coach, I'm quickly reminded that this is why I'm doing my job.
Hmm.
And the relationships I have with these people go outside of the gym. I have group texts with significant groups in my gym that typically work out together, or I will go make. I have a very crafty client, and she gets us together to teach us how to make greeting cards, and I'll go
Oh.
hang out with the ladies and do that. Or my birthday was a few weeks ago, and so many people were giving me cards and presents, and they know what's going on with my family. We've watched Kevin race on the big screen. My they know that am alone in the winters and have a lot on my plate, and I just feel that it's a lot more than just a workout, but
Hmm.
it totally is a community, but there is a level of respect
Hmm.
for me, and that this is still my job, and it's a pretty special environment to be a part of. And I feel like they have my back just as much as I have theirs.
Yeah, I mean, so my boyfriend's mom she comes to your gym,
Yes.
and this spring you were racing the Vancouver Marathon, which I certainly want to talk about in a bit, but she is part of this group text called the
The
Coachables.
coachables, yes.
And I was with her while you were doing the marathon, and her phone was just like buzzing nonstop with all of these clients of yours who come and they work out with you, and they are just giving each other the play by play of your race, looking at the splits, like, she's got it, she's on pace, like, oh, she's looking so good. And everyone's kind of tuning in from afar, but cheering you on. And it was so fun to just see, like, I was like witnessing this community and this support group that you had. Typically, you're the one supporting them, right? And then they got to turn around and support you during that moment. So I just feel like that speaks a lot to the community that you are building.
That's a perfect example of what the vibe is like in there.
Yeah. That's so special. That's so special. And what's coming next? So you've told me a little bit that you are getting into more Pilates classes now. So
Yeah,
can you share about that?
that starts this week. I start getting trained up for that on Thursday and Friday. There's a woman in the Burlington area that is now opening her third studio, and all within like a 15-mile radius of each other, which to me is like she's doing something right. Like this is
Hmm.
someone I want to learn from, and a group that I want to be a part of. We're gonna bark. When I when I lived in Colorado, I would do Legree quite often, which is it's can't call it Pilates, it's its own method, but I loved how that would challenge me in a way that was so different from everything else that I did. And I also feel that it's a feel good workout. You don't leave feeling like you've hurt yourself.
Hmm.
I think all levels can do it and make it as challenging as they need. So part of the reason I'm doing this is I'm always trying to learn and become a better coach and figure out new ways to challenge my clients, new ways to challenge myself. But I also think it's important for me to be a part of a team in addition to the own team that I've built here. So I'm excited to learn from another female business owner locally who I know the people around her have immense respect for her, and I want to learn from her and be a part of a community. And I do think Pilates and strength training can go hand in hand. And we actually, the owner of the Body Lab or the Body Lab X, where I'll be teaching, we share quite a few clients that go back and forth between the two. And it's really cool to be in a non-competitive, somewhat partnership
Yeah.
with another female business owner. She comes to my classes too. I will go there. So I'm excited to kind of bridge the gap between strength training and Pilates and show a different group how they can accompany each other very well. I've been trying to get my Nordies in the gym to try some new Pilates moves, which has been fun. So
Yeah, I would love to learn sometime. I think that sounds so
yeah.
cool. And I love that you mentioned, she's a fellow female business owner in the Burlington community. And rather than being competitors with each other, you are working together to build each other up, build up the book of business that you both have, and share resources, share ideas, share knowledge so that, folks who come in to hit performance training, you can refer to them to the body lab, and those who
Hmm.
come into the body lab can be referred to hit performance training. And it's just really cool to hear that type of growth mindset, even with someone who you'd maybe think is like a competitor. And I think that actually really kind of goes beautifully with being a teammate with someone, such as being on the UVM ski
Yeah.
team. And, we are teammates and we are competitors, and we are fighting for carnival start spots, or we're fighting for a podium, and we're working together and we're pushing each other to be better. And it's such a beautiful type of relationship that you can build with someone where you're like, I want to I want to be competitive, and I want to build someone else up, or I want to learn from someone else too, and I just
Hmm.
think that's really cool that you've applied that at this point in your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important piece of being a a business owner is, my biggest reason for doing what I do is not necessarily for me, it's for the people that I coach. And I want them to be taken care of. And I think in order for you to stay on track with a fitness journey, you have to be doing something that you love and something that motivates you. And that could be where I am, or that could be somewhere else. So I'm always trying to, I say that to people. I'm like, if this isn't working, you might as well tell me, because I'm
Yeah.
probably going to know where to send you. So maybe that's not the best business model, but it's the empath or compassionate person in me that cares more for the person than the profit.
Which again, we're going to talk about in a bit here. But I want to highlight the fact that you're a business owner. You get to run your own gym. You own your own business. And I'm curious, like, what would young Mary Kate Cirelli think if you went back and told her, like, hey, you're going to own your own business someday?
Oh boy. I mean, considering I wanted to be a marine biologist and I'm actually kind of afraid of the ocean, I don't think one would have assumed that this is where we would have ended up. But when I look back on little me, it doesn't surprise me too much. I think a lot of the difficult experiences that I've gone through as an athlete and as a person have maybe created this business version of me, from the life skills that I've learned.
Yeah, you know how to work hard.
Yeah. So she was always in there, but maybe didn't have the confidence
Yeah.
to do something
Okay.
like this.
Okay. Well, let's talk about young MK. Can you share what it was like just to grow up in Rutland, Vermont? What did your childhood look like? And when did you first learn how to cross country ski?
Well, so I always joke that I was born in Barrie and I upgraded to Rutland, which if you're from
Okay.
Vermont, you might chuckle at that. But I moved to Rutland when I was six-ish, and I would say, looking back, I had a pretty wonderful upbringing. Both my parents were in education, so they had the summers off, and sports were just it. Like we were always doing different activities, but had a very structured home lifestyle. I've come from very simple beginnings, but I learned the value of hard work from my parents at an early age. Like I was thinking today, I'm like, when did I have my first job? I was probably 12. Um, but life in Rutland, Rutland gets a weird rap sometimes, but I didn't have any issues with it. I thought it was cool. It gave me a lot of wonderful opportunities. I met a lot of great people. I did a ton of different sports. I had great jobs. I had the type of family that every night we sat down at the dinner table together. There was no real technology back then. Back then, it wasn't that long ago, but there were no cell phones out
Right.
at the table, and we would have family sit down dinners on Sundays. We had chores that we had to do. So I wouldn't change it for the world, but it was very simple. We didn't go on vacations. And back to your question about when I started skiing, I was midway through my freshman year of high school. Had never put, well, maybe I put on cross country skis once as a kid, but it wasn't a family activity. So I started rather late in the game.
Hmm. Okay, well, I want to pause and just give a wonderful hug to your entire family and to your parents who, when I was a freshman at UVM, I was invited to Easter with the Cirellis, and your parents just gave like the biggest warm welcome. My family was back in Minnesota, and I didn't really have any relatives or family connections who could invite me to a home cooked meal and just like this home atmosphere that you can't always get when you're in college or when you're far away from home. And so your parents gave that to me, and they gave me hugs at every race, and they felt like almost kind of a step in parent figure, just like giving so much support and cheering. And so I just want to thank them and
Oh,
just
that will mean a lot to them
yeah.
for sure. You know, what they couldn't give, let's say financially, they made up for it in every other aspect of what it means to be a parent of an athlete. And I know they were really happy. Jeannie and Tom Wagner, the Wagner family in Marquette, they were that for me, and I
Mhm.
know that they knew how important that was for me. So I'm glad that you felt that way because it is a really special feeling to have like a home away from home.
Yeah. And it's exactly how I feel anytime I'm flying through Burlington and I have a stopover at your home in Burlington now. I'm like, "Hey, I'm flying in late. Can I crash with you?" And you're like, "Absolutely. I'm gonna be asleep, but like, you know how to let
Here's the
yourself
door
in."
code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just walk in and it's like just this warm, inviting feeling, and I see you in the morning and you're like, "Here's a cappuccino." And it's just like immediately I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is home. I've been traveling for like months and I get to come to MK's and I just feel like
Oh,
home, a home away from home." So I think it's something that the Sorellis carry with them wherever they go.
oh, that's really wonderful to hear, and I'm glad we give off that vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about some skiing a little bit.
Yeah,
So you said you didn't start skiing until, midway through your freshman year. So what made you start skiing? Like why did you pick them up?
great question. Well, actually, no, there's kind of an answer to that. In I was doing swim team. I did swim team forever, like every summer, and Keely Levens, Chloe Levens, like they were like big deal cross country ski family. And I remember Keely talking about it. And so that's where it like kind of first put the bug in my ear. But before then I was playing basketball, and I'm
Nice.
like 5 foot nothing. Like there was no future there. And I was slowly working my way out of team sports. I didn't really know it at the time, but I think I was looking for more of an individual sport with a team environment. And so I forget, maybe it was Keely, or maybe we had like quite a few girls that were keen to learn how to cross country ski. And I thought, well, I love to run, I love to be active. I like to be outside. So me and my no skis, poles, boots experience are going to give this a shot.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it that wasn't pretty, but it
Well,
worked out.
yeah, it worked out. And in high school, you started finding success as a runner and a skier. You won Vermont state championships in the classic and skate. You went on to then get second at junior nationals behind Jesse. And at what point did you start realizing, like, hey, I'm kind of good at this actually?
I think honestly, it might have been like that race at JO's, now JN's, that I was like, oh, okay, these aren't even my skis that I'm racing on, but I did really well, and I have an engine. You can't give someone an engine, but you can teach them how to ski. So I
Right.
think that's when I started realizing, I love this sport. I just need to figure out ways to get more support with technique.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for Sperry Caldwell and SMS for they had just adopted me in the
Hmm.
summers. I would drive there a couple days a week. This is when I was starting to really get into it, and I
Hmm.
would be a part of their summer training group. There'd be workouts where I never felt like I wasn't a part of the group. They would give me technique advice, then I'd get the free granola bar at the end of the workout, and it was really really special. And then, to make things even more magical, when I would go to Eastern Cups, like they would help me with my skis,
Hmm.
my skis that were meant for a middle-aged heavy-set man, which I was told, like, you should have seen the stuff that I was rolling up with. But they still would wax my skis and help me out and, give me splits. And it was it was Sperry in that community that really helped me tremendously. I really don't think I would have progressed like I did without following those older girls around. And having, I think Sperry believed in me. I felt like he did. He wasn't
Mhm.
even my coach, but it was really cool to be like, wow, someone thinks I'm good at this. Like maybe I'll have a chance.
Well, Sperry's got a good eye for things like that. He's, he's developed a couple of decent skiers over the years.
No
When I
kidding.
say that, I mean he's developed some incredible world-class athletes. So, yeah, you can definitely trust Sperry's eye, and when he sees something, you go with it. So it's really cool just to hear that he, believed in you and gave you that type of support. But you didn't actually go to SMS. You were there,
No.
in the summer. So you were actually, was it Rutland High School?
Yeah, Rutland High School.
And did they have a ski team then that you could train with in the winter time?
Yep, we had a team.
Yeah, yeah. What a
Yeah,
team.
it was pretty low key. We did the best we could with the tools we had. I'll put it
Yeah.
that way. And there was no shortage of love for the sport, but I think we were all kind of learning from whatever we could find support. Our coach was wonderful. He was a busy guy and he did the best he could to support what became a very big team.
Hmm.
Um, but levels all over the place. Like we had people who couldn't even walk on skis to like Keeley winning the state championship. So there were a lot of people for him to look after. So I was fortunate to also get some help from some other people along the way with technique advice. But if you watched me ski, it was like, wow, she's strong, but that's not how you do it.
Okay, well, you clearly learned how to ski.
Yeah, I did, but I do think, I did get to a point where it would have been helpful, I think, to have a little bit more of a base of
Mhm.
technique awareness, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, you made it work with what you had, and you started finding some incredible success as a high school athlete. And that's super exciting. Oftentimes, with success, there also comes pressure,
Hmm.
and it's really hard to avoid that. And I'm curious, did you start to feel pressure at any point then in high school?
Yeah, that actually started unrelated to cross country skiing. The pressure that I felt began when I made varsity soccer my freshman year. And I would say me up until high school was a pretty happy go lucky, do lots of sports, not really a care in the world type of person. And it was until I made varsity and started feeling the pressures of like, there's a starting lineup. Like, we play under the lights. Like, I'm playing with seniors, I'm fighting for my spot. And I don't know if me making varsity made everyone super stoked on the team. And I remember getting injured my sophomore year. I was already on kind of like a mental downhill spiral from just missing the camaraderie that can sometimes be a part of a team. And I can't say that was the experience for everyone, that was just mine. But with that injury and with feeling on the outs and with feeling the pressure, that's when I started to kind of spiral a bit. And this new version of me started to come out. And that's when the trouble began, was my sophomore year.
Hmm. And do you feel like the trouble,
Yeah.
uh, was that because of like do you know what was maybe the confounding variable to that? Was it body image? Was it pressure to perform a certain way or look a certain way? Or was it really just like a coping mechanism for the spiral that you were kind of dealing with?
I think I started to realize my sophomore year that as sports get more competitive, you become aware of things that you think you should be doing to get yourself to the next level. And oh, yeah, oh, everyone's back. So with that injury, I can remember I have vivid memories of just sitting on the spin bike in the training room because I couldn't go to soccer practice and just spinning. And I think was kind of what started the desire to exercise to a point where I thought I was going to be like the fittest one. And maybe that would either make me fit in, or maybe that would get me on the starting lineup. And then there became like an awareness about diet. And I remember like measuring plain Cheerios and like measuring in the milk and then like cutting up the banana. And I'm like, looking at that now, I'm like, that was probably 150 calories. Like, what on earth was that going to do for you when you had double sessions of soccer?
Mhm.
So I started to get this idea in my head of what it meant to get to the next level.
Mhm.
And like you said, the coping kind of thing, I think that was my way of coping with some underlying issues that I wasn't aware of, which come to find out was depression. And I also was really struggling with not feeling like I was a member of the team. So, it's an overused saying of like we seek ways we can find control, but it is really true. I was like,
Mhm.
I can control how fit I am, I can control how little I'm eating or what I'm eating. I'm still going to be miserable, and I'm probably not even going to get on the starting lineup because I'm going to keep getting hurt. Like I got hit in the ball with, or hit in the chest with a ball my sophomore year. Normally, that wouldn't, give you an intercostal strain,
Mm.
but for me, because I had lost so much weight, and then I was out because
Mm.
deep breaths couldn't draw in and out enough oxygen with the strain. So I stopped playing soccer my sophomore year, got into endurance sports, which when you're already kind of struggling with food and exercise, like it was the best worst thing I could have done for myself.
Mhm.
The best thing in a sense that it opened up so many new doors for me, but the worst thing because I was the lightest I'd ever been and I was having a lot of great success,
Mhm.
which in that time I didn't realize how detrimental that was to my body. And I went right, female athlete triad, poster child. Like that was me. And I remember being in pretty extreme denial that that's what I was going through. And I give my parents so much credit for taking me to my, pediatrician at the time and her saying, you need to see a therapist. Like this is not good. You're underweight, yada, yada. And I was like, no, I'm not. The whole thing. And yeah, then that got me going through my journey of therapy. That was a lot of me talking, but
No, thank you for sharing. That's not an uh, easy journey to share, to talk about, I'm sure. And so, I appreciate you being so honest with it. And, it's tough because being in a situation like that, it's almost like, you're feeding the monster and the monster kind of feeds itself back in that, like, you know, you're trying to become more fit as a soccer player. And so in the, at a young age, like young athletes don't know everything about sports science and nutrition and what it means to be quote fit or to be a good soccer player. And so sometimes we see things in a magazine or in an ad and you're like, that must be what it means to be fit. And so that means I need to lose X amount of weight in order to do that. And in reality, that's not the truth. But then you start to kind of gain momentum of like,
oh
yep,
yeah.
this is it. And you start kind of telling yourself this narrative of like, yes, the more I lose, the more weight I lose, then the better I will be. And in reality, then you get injured. And with the whether you're playing soccer or you're running or you're skiing, your body does become weaker if it's not fueled well. And then say you become injured and then that means you have to take time off, and then you think, oh no, I can't exercise, so I'm going to gain this weight back. And so then you start spiraling even more, and it is a really
Yeah.
dangerous cycle to get on. And um, it's hard to realize in the moment what's happening. And so thank goodness like your parents were aware. I'm curious if you had other relationships in your life at the time that, saw some of this happening, like your coaches or friends or teammates or other family members. Did anyone else kind of, step in?
Coaches, to my knowledge, no. Do I think my soccer coaches were probably concerned? Yes. I was a little bit of a weird animal with my eating disorder. I guess it was probably more considered disordered eating because I still was, but it was like this at this time and this time and this time and this time. And I remember bringing those like 100-calorie cans of soup to lunch with me. That's when I'd have friends that, in the best way that they knew how, would say things to me like, "Oh, are you sure that's enough? Or do you want this?" Or some were a little more delicate than others, but I did have some of my peers who were definitely aware of what was going on, which is such a tough thing when you're that age. Like, I give those people credit, but they weren't going to be able to fix anything. Like, if anything, that made me more closed off about things.
Mhm.
And the funny part too, it's not funny, but I didn't actually like that I was skinny. I didn't like how I looked and I was very self-conscious about it. I knew I was performing well at that weight, but I also knew that it wasn't healthy. So it was a very weird thing to be processing, I suppose, to look in the mirror and be like, "Oh boy, like that's not good. Like ribs are starting to show, shoulders are popping. I don't like this, but I'm so far into this that like what do I do? Just put on a sweatshirt and like go back out there." So it wasn't and until like my parents really got involved. But yeah, people were aware, very
Mhm.
aware. It just had to be, you know, almost getting forced into going to get help that made the biggest difference.
Well, and I'm curious if you have experienced kind of this shift in, uh, I guess, the narrative around something like disordered eating. In, it's still really hard to talk about. It's never going to be an easy thing to talk about. But I feel like 15 years ago, it just wasn't talked about, or wasn't
God,
talked
no.
about in an open way, right? Like your
No.
coach or your friend wasn't going to be like, "Hey, MK, let's talk," right? And,
Yeah.
they tried to give support in subtle ways of like, "Oh, do you want a snack?" Or like, "Is that enough?" Um, and and thank goodness for that. Like that's still great, and it's not enough. And
Yeah.
I hope that we can, in having more of these conversations and bringing more awareness to uh, the conversation, that uh, people don't need to be afraid. In fact, hopefully they are courageous enough to talk to someone if they see something or if they notice not great behaviors. And maybe it doesn't need to be, your teammate talking to you directly, but you could even, make a mention of it to a coach. And you're doing it in a way where it is coming from a place of love and support and not a place of malice or competitiveness, right? Like we have to look out for each other.
Yeah.
And in some of those small moments, it sounds like you did have friends or coaches who maybe, saw it and wanted to look out for you, but like didn't really know what to do. And ultimately, it took your parents saying, like, we need to go to the doctor. And then the doctor saying, like, we need you to start therapy. And I'm
Yeah.
curious then, like, how did you respond to that? Were you like, okay, or was there denial there? What did that look like?
More like, hell no, I don't have
Yeah.
any problems. Um, yeah, a lot of denial. But I think maybe not denial kind of coupled with shame and embarrassment. And shame is such a strong way to feel. I was very aware that I had struggles, but because it was such a maybe more of a taboo thing then, I was very embarrassed that I would maybe need therapy or would be diagnosed with depression or so. I forget what your question was.
Yeah, how did you respond to this idea of going to therapy?
Oh yeah, terribly, terribly. And we were recommended to one therapist. I went in and I was like, nope, she is not the one. And which is important. I
Yeah.
do I do want to say that maybe it's worth giving them a second chance, but you've got to find someone you connect with. And I
Mhm.
do believe it could take a couple tries. You have to be open in the process. But when I met the therapist that I will just say it, she changed my life and she's no longer with us, but I owe her everything. And she was incredible. And I would see her, once a week for a very long time, and I loved her approach. She was kind, but she was no nonsense.
Mhm.
And I remember that approach working very well for me. I didn't want someone to feel sorry for me. I wanted them to make me look in at this problem head on and figure out how to make changes, even if they were very small.
Hmm.
And it was within those therapy sessions that I also discovered that, through her help, that my most prominent emotion was anger. And if you looked at me going through this eating disorder and some of the like temper tantrums I would have or lack of emotional control, I was not surprised when she said, like, wow, there's a lot of anger here. And if you know me, I don't, I mean, sometimes my face can look very angry. I can't help that. But I wouldn't say I'm like a very angry person.
Not at
But
all.
that was one of the ways I was, helped to diagnose depression, which was pretty severe. And then I was put on medication and have been ever since. And I will say I've tried to go off it at times. The anger comes right back.
Mm.
And I've now found, what works for me, but I just know that I can't be my best self without taking some form of a antidepressant. It keeps me from going backwards.
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
that's not to say that I'd have everything figured out. I'd be lying straight to your face if I said I didn't still have struggles with things around exercise and food. But if I look back to where I was and I couldn't even eat a bagel, like that girl's in the past.
Hmm.
So acknowledging those small changes can be really tough. So I have to remind myself to look back at that and know that me 10 years down the road will be looking back at what I'm struggling with now, and maybe that will have changed. But just got to give yourself a lot of credit
Yeah.
for the wins.
Yeah. It's important to look back and be proud of this is who I am now, and this is the change I've made. And things aren't perfect. Things are never going to be perfect. What is perfect? But things are better and you can be proud of that. And you overcame a lot to get to the point that you're at. And I think that oftentimes, um, when treating something like an eating disorder, it is so far from treating an injury or an illness, like an infection. An injury, you break a bone, give it 6 to 8 weeks and you're good to go, right? You roll an ankle, it's like give it some rest, do some PT, and you should be good to go. And say you have an infection, it's like take some antibiotics and let it run its
Yeah.
course. Like it's going to be good to go. And that's not the case here. It is going to be something that you carry with you probably forever.
Oh,
And
forever.
yeah,
Forever.
you
Yeah.
find ways to manage it, or maybe it ebbs and flows. It kind of comes in a roller coaster, but there's no band-aid to stick on it and say it's healed. And so how have you over the years carried that with you, in good and bad?
Let's see. Well, in bad, just I still, maybe not on the same level, still struggle with some of my dietary habits. And I'll just go right out there and say one of them because maybe someone can relate to this. Like sampling food if someone's cooking is terribly difficult for me.
Mm.
Um, I could probably talk for 30 more minutes about why that's the case, but that's just an example of one thing that I carry with me. Um, so that's not great, but it's a work in progress. So that's like one thing that I'll tell my husband. I'll be like, hey, really bad at sampling food. I don't know what it is. I just, it's not in my window of eating. We'll say that.
Mhm.
But I tell him that and I'm like, so I got to get better at this. So I need you to, make sure that maybe once a week, this is something that I'm doing
Mhm.
so that I can work on breaking that whatever's going on in my brain that is like afraid to like sample food. So benign, right? Like that's not something you'd necessarily think of as like a big deal, but for someone who has a history with an eating disorder, that could be the scariest thing they do all week.
Yeah.
Um, and also with exercise, going from being we'll air quote elite Nordic skier to being just a normal everyday person, I don't know how to do that.
Mhm.
So even if I'm not training for something, you would think that I've like that I've got like a coach or something with, and granted, I'm doing way less than I used to, but I still do way more than most people do. And there is definitely some over exercise tendencies that I still have, for sure.
Mhm.
So that would be like the bad ways that I carry this with me. But the good ways is what we're doing right now. I'm not
Mhm.
ashamed of it. I don't mind talking about it. I think it can sometimes make me more approachable as a coach. Um, I I don't like to necessarily give advice in the gym to people about like this is what you should eat
Mhm.
and this is what you should do to work out and then you'll, look like me or something. I think, I'm very open about like, I wish I was capable of doing this. This is what I wish I could do and maybe this would work for you or this is what I do, but it might not be the healthiest approach. And I try to just be really open and honest with people about um, my history and tying that into being a good coach. Because I think a lot of times we have people that will talk about how body positive they are or how their relationship with exercise is so wonderful. And sometimes that is the case, but other times I can view that as kind of like a cry for help.
Mm.
So you'll never see me posting an Instagram video where I'm like, I do my workouts all the time, and that's why I look like this.
Mhm.
Or this is what I eat in a day. If you really want to know what I eat in a day, it's far too much sugar. But um, I just try to keep it really, really real with people. And so I think it's important to use your disorder as a superpower
Mhm.
and try to help other people as best you can without being pushy. But I'm
Mhm.
always someone that anyone can talk to about it because chances are I understand it. So I say I speak eating disorder because I can hear people say stuff and I'm like, oh, I've said that before.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think that one thing that you kind of said throughout that is one, um, well, first of all, thank you for sharing again.
yeah,
I do value it a lot, and I really think that I hope that anyone who's struggling with this can take this away. And you said, there is some good in that you carry with it as um, being an advocate or talking about it and being able to maybe speak eating disorder or just to be able to empathize with someone and maybe you're not there to fix all the problems, but you're there to listen and
totally.
to understand. um, and I think that's incredible. I also think it's incredible to lean on your support system. So, you're honest with your husband, Kevin, and say, like, this is something that I need to work on and I need your help to get better at it. And I'm curious also, like, how much, especially during those younger years when you were in high school and your parents said, like, we need you to go to therapy. And I'm sure there were times when you walked out of therapy and you were like, never again, I'm not going
Oh
back,
yeah.
no way. And they had the patience to walk you through that process. Like, what did that look like? I mean, do you even know what that looks like for them? Or if you could maybe give advice at this point to anyone who is like the support system of someone going through that, what would you tell them?
Oof. That's a great question. And I've kind of talked to my parents about that. And usually what I say to them is thank you for not giving up on me or thank you for not letting me win.
Hmm.
Ultimately, my mom and dad were never going to be able to fix it, but they cared enough about me to make sure that I was in the hands of someone who was able to help me progress
Hmm.
with this problem. And in terms of advice from a support person, because, Kevin and I talk about this a lot, you have to be really open, sensitive, understanding, a safe place. I don't necessarily need him or my parents to solve it, but I do need them to listen. And maybe then it's their job to find me the help that I need because
Hmm.
sometimes I might not know how to get that started. Fortunately, I'm in a place in my life where I'm like, time to go back to therapy. Like we are backsliding.
Hmm.
Um, But the advice for a support person would be like, don't feel like you have to be the one to fix it, but just be there with open arms and an open heart. And if you need to get them the help that they need, they probably will thank you in the future. Because I say that to my mom and dad all the time, like, thank you so much. I know it probably sucked, and I was probably a little jerk and made your life absolutely miserable. But if you didn't make me do it, who knows what would have happened.
Mhm. Did you feel like there was a point then where you felt like you had kind of turned over a leaf and, you were on more of this upward trajectory, whether that was you were like, I don't need to go to therapy right now, or, like we said, you're never going to be cured from it,
Right.
at all. But there are times when, you start to feel like I've got this.
Yeah. Um, when I kind of felt like I didn't need, well, I didn't have any form of support for my mental health when I was in Michigan. But when I transferred to UVM, that's the best I've ever felt mentally, physically. And it was a long battle to like get back to a happy, healthy place. But that was the first time I felt like I could breathe and that there was a possibility that I was going to get my way towards the other side.
Mhm. Okay, so let's talk about that because you
Yeah.
went from being the local legend in Vermont, and you had actually, I'm pretty sure you had signed with UVM in high school. Is that correct? Or you had maybe
So
agreed?
it was St. Lawrence and then UVM, and then I went to, was it after GMVS? Yeah, after GMVS, it was going to be St. Lawrence. I don't think I had, maybe I had some, I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
I made a lot of coaches real angry. And then it was going to be UVM, and then after a summer in Wisconsin and going to NMU and getting offered a full scholarship, and it was NMU.
Yeah. So, because you had been at GMBS and then you went to Hayward, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So, any Midwest listeners, you were training with some other Midwest girls under Bill Pierce, and
Yeah.
you originally went out there just for the summer, but then you guys took a
Yep.
trip up to Marquette. And can you share like what that was like for you, and what kind of how did you suddenly decide, oh, I'm gonna go to NMU?
Well, I went, one of the other girls had, I want to say it was like transfer orientation day. So I went with her, and Bill had hooked me up with the coach to get like a blood lactate test. And I was thinking that I was just going to like do some cool testing, see a different part of the country, and come back the next day. So I did the test, and he was kind of like, okay, you've got an engine. Like, I don't
Like,
even
get
know if
this.
you can, I don't even know if you can ski, but that turned into a conversation of a full scholarship within like the day. And of course, to me, that was like the coolest thing ever. You know, you come from very humble beginnings to being offered a full scholarship, and you're like, well, I guess I'm going here.
Hmm.
So I think I liked it enough. Granted, it was a beautiful sunny day on Lake Superior when I went to get my testing done. So I might have been a bit jaded in that regard. But I also didn't want to put my parents in a difficult position financially. And I thought, man, to not have debt, I wasn't good enough to ski. UVM's team, they had just like won the national championship. So I would have been like bottom of the barrel with not much money sent my way. Understandable. So I thought like, wow, NMU, they're gonna just like Hail Mary, literally, let me go there and give me a chance. And I thought that's pretty cool that they are willing to sign me without knowing all that much about me. So that's when I decided to go there.
Hmm. I mean,
Sorry,
I just
Weave.
want Patrick Weaver. He's like, oh,
Shout out. Yeah.
it all worked out in the end. Um, but I just want to kind of take a moment and pause and say, like, how incredible it is that sport can bring you to an education like that and to open these doors. Like, some people might not be able to attend a college financially, and then there's a scholarship that's offered, and you're like, wait, I could go do this, right? And um,
Hmm.
it's just like an incredible, if you stick with it, like it can be an incredible door that opens. Granted, it oftentimes takes a lot of resources to get to that level, but it's not required. Like not everyone comes from a family of incredible wealth. And um, you have talked about some of the equipment that you had in high school,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, you have freaking talent to make it as far as you did in high school with the equipment that you had. And so then when you made it to NMU and you had this incredible scholarship, you had a great coach, and I think maybe you had access to a little bit better equipment by that point. Uh,
Not really. Yeah. No, it was better, but like my team would roll out with like I had these like 7 pairs of cold skis and I didn't even know what the skis were, and I'd roll up and it was either a warm day or a cold day. And sometimes we wore the warm on the cold and the cold on the warm, but yeah, that sucked. I will say, like having equipment that either didn't fit, like my boots, my feet are still like pretty jacked up from college, um but fortunately, I will say Sten was really big on sharing skis.
mhm.
And if you didn't have what you needed, even if the other skier didn't really want you to use their skis, it was like, well, she needs them. So that was pretty cool. It was like,
Yeah.
we are a team. Um, we're gonna make it work.
Mhm. Yeah. So can we talk about your time then at NMU and what was that like? How did it start off and what were the initial feelings, that first fall that you were there?
Um, let's see. So, I came from a very happily sheltered high school life. Like I was not one that was a homebody. So in terms of getting into trouble, it wasn't happening. So college for me was I was terrified to do anything to risk losing my scholarship. And that's not always maybe the most popular approach. So I felt kind of out of the gate that I was a bit out of place there. Whether it was, on like team dynamic wise, I just never really felt as though I fit in or had the confidence to be the person I knew I was or wanted to be. And that definitely didn't help me out. Um, I also really struggled with the winters there. Like, those are not for the faint of heart. And when you're already kind of feeling a bit on the outs, and then to be dealing with a lot of cold weather, and snow and being far away from family. It was a really tough first year. And I just felt like me, who I came to college as, needed to change for my second year. And one thing I learned going into my second year is like that me also probably wasn't the best version of me. So no matter how I tried to change for the people around me, it didn't matter. Um, and lacking authenticity didn't do me any favors. So I don't think it was a good fit for me mentally, emotionally, psychologically, environmentally. Um, Not to say that, I didn't have a great experience with my education. Like I always had, some great professors and enjoyed my studies there. That team just has a lot of really amazing access and resources to things that a lot of other teams don't have. There's no shortage of snow. Uh, we had great conditions for training. There were a lot of really wonderful things, but leaving was ultimately probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made to try to get back to who I am.
Mhm. Well, and I have to imagine that when you made kind of a last minute decision to go to NMU for your first year of college, like it was kind of right before school started, right? Like there wasn't a
It
whole
was
lot
probably
of,
August, for God's
yeah.
sakes. Yeah.
And I feel like that in itself is such a hard, just like pivot to make. I signed with the University of Vermont and in October, the year before of my first year, and I had 8 months to prepare myself. Like, okay, I'm gonna move across the country. I'm gonna, not be at home all the time. I'm gonna make sure that I prioritize time with these friends before I say goodbye and make sure I'm like good with my family and happy. And I had like the time to prepare myself to make this huge change for me and to really like be like kind of like wrap things up at that
Yeah.
time for myself in Minnesota and then make that move. And like you didn't really have that time. You didn't have that chance to kind of wrap things up on the East Coast and you were just like, I'm going to Marquette.
Yeah.
And
No, totally. I didn't
that's
even
such a
think of it that
pivot.
way.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
pivot that like you almost like get there and you're like, okay, what are we doing now?
Yeah. And I was like the ultimate homebody. I didn't really like I said, I didn't make a lot of bad decisions. So when I got to college, I was like, whoa, alcohol? Like bad choices? Like I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it was tough for me to stay true to who I was. And I will say, I wish going into my sophomore year, I had just said, people don't like me, they're not gonna like me. You know, let's just skiing is the priority, school is the priority, you'll find the right people. But staying true to who you are ultimately leads to the most respect from others,
Mhm.
which I wish I know that now, but I didn't know it then.
Yeah. Well, you took a chance on yourself and you made the decision with the cards that you had at the time. Like you thought you were making the best decision for yourself, where you were going to get this financial aid, you were going to get this support from the coach, and there were these testing opportunities, and
Yeah.
you had like with all of that, it's like, yeah, you made that the right decision. And in fact, like, you know, you hadn't had a chance to understand like what was the team like and what was it like to be in Marquette in the wintertime when it's cold and dark and windy. And so ultimately, like you didn't necessarily, it wasn't a perfect fit
Yeah.
and there were struggles.
There were a lot of struggles. And I never had like exposure to being a part of a competitive group
Hmm.
up until the summer before I left. Like, I mean, granted, it was me and like four other girls, but that was the most like competitive environment I'd been in. GMVS was its little bubble. There were like three of us and
Hmm.
we trained, but I had no idea what it was going to be like and how much more intense it is. And, everyone's kind of coming in with similar goals. It's like,
Hmm.
we want to go, like, let's be good at this. And I don't think I was ready for it.
Yeah. Do you have, looking back now, do you have advice to someone who's maybe struggling with a team dynamic or a certain environment that they're in? Um, Whether that's like the team environment or just like the geographical location that they're in and it's not a perfect fit, what advice could you tell them?
Freshman year is always kind of tricky. Um, I don't regret going back for a second year. And I think, if you can try to give a place another chance, it could be better. It might not be, but in order to feel confident in your decision to transfer or move on, maybe it's worth exploring a second year.
Hmm.
In terms of team dynamic, I wish going in, and I'm saying this to the other people listening, is like try to go in being confident in who you are as an individual. Don't feel bad for showing up very prepared. Your job is to be prepared as an athlete. It's
Hmm.
nothing to be ashamed about. Saying less is more. Um, just, keep your guard up a little bit. You've got to, ease into being a part of a team. And that takes time. And yeah, less is more and be confident in who you are because people are ultimately going to respect you for just being yourself. You can't
Hmm.
really get mad at someone for being themselves. They might annoy you, but just being who you are, there's nothing wrong with that. And that would be my biggest advice is just to like less is more, be yourself. That's the best way you can respect yourself and for others to respect you. And if you can swing trying a second year, even if it ends up being tough, at least you'll feel confident moving on. And wherever you transfer, it's probably going to feel really great, as it did for me.
Well, and you trusted your gut then of like, okay, I've tried this and I've tried it a second time and it's still not really working for me. So something's got to change.
Yeah.
And I think that there are actually a lot of parallels to the conversation that I recently had with Kate Oldham, who had spent time at Middlebury. And granted, it was also during COVID and it was weird and craziness was happening then. But, she was kind of like, this doesn't feel right to me. And then she kind of took a break and then she went back again for another semester. And she's like, this still doesn't really feel right. And she gave it that second chance. And then she also trusted her gut of like, I need something else. And there's no shame in trying something else or realizing like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like the people on the team or the location that you're at. Like Marquette is an incredible place, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
know I know so many athletes who have had an incredible time racing for NMU and their experience there. So it's not to speak illy of the location or the team or the dynamic or anything like that. It's really just like it's not the right fit, and so we've got
Totally.
to make a change.
And
And
I wish it could have been. It would have been a lot easier to just stay there. We had a
yeah,
lot of amazing perks. And I mean, Marquette, like, oh my God, is it not like one of the most absolutely magnificent places on the face of the earth? It's
yeah,
stunning.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. But ultimately, you decided, okay, I gotta go back home. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
back to
We're
Vermont.
leaving. Yeah.
How did it feel like you were coming home?
It did. It made me appreciate Vermont a lot more than I ever had. Like knowing I was going to be able to see my parents at races and just home was as close or as far as I needed it to be. I had a lot of family in Burlington.
Hmm.
You know, my Nana would always be, you know, here, there, and everywhere. And getting to spend that quality time with her before she got sick was really amazing. So it was the right move for me.
Hmm. Well, it was very fun for me to meet you then and become such fast friends. And I still remember to this day, like so vividly, the first time I met you. I think we had maybe connected like over Facebook or something at
Yeah.
first because I was coming in as a freshman and you were coming in as like new to the team, even though it was kind of your third year in college. Um, you didn't care that I was like 4 years younger than you or whatever it is. You were just like, hey, you want to be friends? And
Let's go for a
and
run.
yeah, exactly. Like you already kind of knew the Burlington area, and so you took me for my very first run from campus. You took me to my very first college party. You
Oh,
sat
good.
next to me
Great influence.
in intro to organic chemistry and
Yes.
like just immediately became such an incredible friend and teammate and mentor in so many ways and like easily came became the person that I got to turn to when I had questions or needed someone just I needed someone to listen to me or to run with me at 6 a.m. because I had an
Yeah.
8:30 class that I had to get to and you're like, yeah, no problem. I'm an early bird, so
Too
let's
dangerous
go.
for you to be out there by yourself.
Like it was just I think it speaks so clearly to who you are at the core of just being this loving and caring and empathetic person who at the same time is just like incredibly tenacious and fierce and is like, yeah, we're gonna go for a 6:30 run and it's gonna be great. And,
Yeah.
like we're gonna, you know, work freaking hard in this workout and you're gonna kick my ass, MK. But like you're like, let's do it together and then let's go get coffee after.
Yeah.
And it was just like I felt like I had such a great buddy right away to face whatever was coming my way. And I just feel very lucky that we got to be catamounts, first year catamounts at the same time. And you kind of showed me the ropes of like, okay, so this is what it's like to be an adult, or like whatever an adult is when you're still in college, but you're
I was
not
like
at
a
home anymore.
21-year-old freshman, so I felt
Yeah.
like an adult. Yeah. I know the feelings are so mutual, and it's really cool that we've continued to be friends. There's not a lot of college teammates that I keep in touch with to the same level as you, and I appreciate what you're doing here with this podcast and trying to open up such a wide variety of topics for skiers of all ages to listen to. And I'm honored to be able to share my story,
Hmm.
good,
Well,
bad, and ugly.
yeah. And it's beautiful, and it's what makes you who you are. And I do kind of want to just like maybe circle back on, you come to UVM, and from my perspective, you thrived at UVM. Like
I
you were,
did.
yeah,
Yeah.
like things started clicking, right? Like you had overcome these barriers in high school, and then you had like a really rocky time at NMU, and then you got to UVM and you met your now husband. I even remember that first run that we went on from campus. You're
Does
like,
anyone know Kevin Drury?
yeah, you're like, so I met this boy, and here we are, what is it, like 11 years later, and you guys are
Yeah.
married, and
Yeah.
like that's so cool. Um, but I'm curious, one, what did skiing look like for you then when you transferred to UVM? And then also, what did your relationship with fueling and eating kind of look like by this point in your life?
Mm. Uh, well, skiing at UVM, first of all, was like just, I felt like for me, meshing with the team felt a little easier. Now, granted, I kind of knew how to better go into a team environment than I had before, and I was just psyched to learn from Weave, and felt like I just like picked up the ball and kept running with it. There wasn't like a like get used to the area and like figure out campus. It just seemed like I put my skis back on and kept moving. Um, and in terms of the fueling, I don't recall my time at UVM ever being like nearly as bad as it had been. Like, did I still have some of my weird, triggers and neuroses around food and training? 100%. Was it like it had been in the past? No, I would say it was more like dormant, if you will. Like, definitely still needed time and attention. And I will never forget, at one point, I was asked by a coach, and I give them so much credit and respect them for doing this. They said, "Hey, you doing okay?" And I was like, I think so. What do you mean?" And they were like, "I don't think you need to lose any more weight." Like it was, and I had so much respect for the coaching staff there that I was like, got it. Like there was just no, I was like, okay, they're on to you. Like
Hmm.
this is turn back to your tools. Like you gotta get things under control. So yeah, just having someone be like, wow, they see me. Like they have a really healthy view of what the female body needs outside of just performance,
Hmm.
and that meant a lot. So I think just knowing that there was that support to fall back on, um, while I was there kind of kept me afloat,
Hmm.
enough to not be, you know losing my period or dropping a ton of weight. I was able to keep my head above water for sure, and I was a lot happier.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes that's everything you can ask for is like it doesn't sound great just keeping your head above water, but like it's a lot better than like drowning. And sometimes,
Yeah, I was like fully, I was almost drowned before then.
right?
Yeah.
And it's never, I mean, as we've talked about, like it's never going to be perfect and it's never going to go away. And so to have that support where you feel seen and you feel heard and you feel respected and they're looking out for you, like that is, I feel like everything that I could ask for in a coach is like,
Oh, yeah.
I want them to believe in me, and I want them to see me for who I am as more than an athlete, but as a person too. And I think those are such important parts of being that type of support system. The technique, the like training physiology, like that's
Yeah,
kind of the easy stuff.
right? Yeah,
That
maybe
you
not the
turn
technique for
to.
me, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you can turn to for your coach, but really, like at the end of the day, what you need is
yeah.
someone who believes in you and supports you as the person. And it's, I think we both owe a lot to Patrick Weaver. He's such an incredible coach.
Oh my gosh. Patrick Weaver, Chris Mallory, and Fred. Like, how lucky
Yeah.
were we?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding? It doesn't get much
Mhm.
better than that in terms of
I know.
coaches.
I
I
know.
have, of course, we miss Fred terribly, but that was
Yeah.
like the most dynamic, inspiring, impactful trio of support we could have asked for.
Yeah. It really was. Yeah. Well, so an incredible time in college. I had so much fun racing with you, and we took it to the track after skiing. You and
Yeah,
I went out for the track team because we're like, we just haven't had enough. This is so much fun.
right.
And so you actually did an extra year of school at UVM on the
Hmm.
cross country and track team. Um, can you speak kind of briefly about what that was like and how then, that relationship went from skiing to running? Why,
Oh,
how, what was that all about?
I mean, I love to run, and it was cool to still feel like I was involved in a Division 1 sport. It was cool to say I did both, but it was so hard to see you guys out there roller skiing. I would like, my soul would just like crumble a little bit every time I would see the team go out and know that that wasn't me anymore. So running it was a wonderful placeholder for me. Like I still got to be part of UVM athletics and run and be a part of a team, but to say I was doing what I was, I don't know, destined to do, if you will, um, not so much.
Mm, that's fair. That's honest. And
Yeah.
um, I'm curious then, like, how did you make the decision? So you had to do you were trying to finish this last year of school, but you were out of
Yep.
eligibility for ski racing, which is
Yep.
kind of why you couldn't continue to ski
Hmm.
race. You did this year of running, and then did at any point in time were you curious, like, should I go back to skiing? You're graduating from college, and like it's kind of like what's next? Is athletics next? Is career next? Like
Yeah.
what is next? Like how did you kind of work through all of that?
Yeah. If you ask me or if you ask my parents, we might both have like a different story. I looking back, I know that, my feet were becoming like a pretty big issue because I wore boots that didn't fit a lot. And so a lot of times during practice and races, my feet were just killing me, which started to make the bad days outnumber the good days. And I also just didn't have the financial means to keep going, which was a bummer. Hindsight 2020, I wish I'd given it 1 year of just like what's out there for me. But I also spent a year running and did no skiing.
Mhm.
So it might have been, I don't know how hard it would have been to jump back in. So yeah, I think, if you ask my parents, they would say that I was ready to be done. If you ask me, I would have loved to have given it another year because there's still like such a big piece of me that I feel is missing because I didn't give it a try. But Kevin was starting his professional career and we were getting more serious. And I wanted to be able to support him. And having two of us be in two different directions would have been pretty tough. And so it was a very difficult transition out of skiing for me. It was not pretty.
Yeah. And how did you handle that? Did you have someone to talk to about that? Did you have other outlets that you could turn to instead?
No, not really. That's a pretty definitive no. But to s- to think that still all these years later, I'm 33 and I graduated at 24, that there is still like such a empty place in my heart from it. For example, I think I went to the UVM Carnival a few years ago in Middlebury, and I remember putting my sunglasses down because I just cried while I watched the race. And then WCAX did a post on me in the gym when I was running the Boston Marathon a few years ago, and there was so much video footage of me skiing in college. And watching that again, I just cried. And I think that's a deeper seated thing for me. I think there's still a big part of me that's trying to figure out who I am without skiing being such a big part of my life. And that might sound a little bit dramatic, um, but it was really important to me. And I think in a lot of ways, skiing saved me more than I realize, in terms of, physically, mentally, emotionally, and to just not really close the chapter on it is tough.
I feel like it's a blessing and a curse that oftentimes skiers come into their skiing ability, typically like in the high school years, and then maybe like in their college years as well. But I feel like so much happens in high school when it comes to like, do you go out for the ski team? Are you on the varsity team? Like, do you make it to jams? Whatever it is, like that's kind of where like you create that relationship with skiing. And at the same time, it's where you're developing who you are and your own identity. And sometimes that can be really beautiful when those things come together. And sometimes it can be a curse that, you're shaping this identity of who you want to be or who you believe you are, and you turn to skiing. And then that becomes, it's not an and, it's a this is. And I think that's something that like I've struggled with is like I haven't stepped away from competitive ski racing at this point
Hmm.
in my life. And it's been something that I have used to kind of define who I am since I was 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so when the time comes for me to step away from competitive ski racing, it's like you're going to lose that chunk of who you are. And you can always be a skier, right?
Totally.
But are you a competitive ski racer who is like training for a certain goal? You certainly can, train for the Berkey or train for the Stowe Derby in Vermont.
Yeah.
And whatever it might be, like you certainly can, but it becomes less of like the first thing you say about yourself when you
Yeah.
introduce yourself, and it becomes more so like this afterthought. But that's super foreign then because we've told ourselves this story of like, I am a skier.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know what the answer is here. Again, I haven't gone through it, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to struggle with it because it's really
Hmm.
scary to go through that process. But I'd like to think that, again, talking about it and sharing some of those emotions with other people who are going through the same thing is a step in the right direction. And so, I mean, do you have anything that you could share about, like, oh, this moment really helped me realize this, or like this turning to this outlet really helped me overcome kind of that like identity searching. You have
Yeah.
completed these Red Bull races, running up ski jumps. You have done Leadville 100 mountain bike races.
Yeah.
Like you've opened your own gym and started your own business. Like you can identify yourself as a business owner now. Like what have you turned to though that maybe kind of changed the narrative for you?
Yeah. I think for me, it was saying to myself, like, all right, you're not skiing anymore, but don't waste your talent. You've got just did a VO2 max test the other day and I'm pretty proud of it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like let's not waste this while we can still use it. So I try to, from time to time, sign myself up for something and I'm like, all right, we're gonna like set a goal for this. Granted, the Vancouver Marathon, Kevin set that goal for me, and I'm so stubborn and competitive that I was like, okay, let's break 3 hours in the marathon. That's gonna suck. So, and it was really hard. But
But you did
I've
it.
just tried to continue to just like, I'll try this, I'll try that. Um, and of course, I can't really go into anything without being somewhat competitive. Leadville, no chance we could have been competitive in that. That was like, make it to the finish line. You're amazing. But yeah, trying to just find little outlets for my competitive spirit. And
Yeah.
another thing too that's been really cool lately is I'm on the board or advisory committee for the Mansfield Pro Nordic team. And first of all, being asked to be on that, I was like, or being asked to be on this podcast, I'm like, me? Really? So that was
Of
a
course.
confidence boost, but helping the athletes with their strength programming and helping Perry kind of dial that in and being able to look back at my experience as an athlete and be like, man, we really missed the mark on like these types of things with training, or to know how to talk to female athletes about strength training and try to ease their worries about certain things, or find creative new moves for them to challenge their balance. Or so I try not to have too many pity parties. I certainly do at times about skiing, but there's still a lot that I can do. And, I don't ski as much as I'd like to, but I still love it when I get out there. I don't think I have a desire to race anymore,
We
competitively with
have to get
skiing.
you to do the Berkey. The fact that you haven't done the Berkey
Actually
yet.
would love to do that just for like fun.
Yeah, it'd be so
Yeah.
fun.
No, I'd be into that. Take me back to Hayward would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, what's coming next then? You just did the Vancouver
I
Marathon this spring,
Yeah,
so that was incredible.
yep,
You broke 3 hours in the marathon,
I
and
did.
you are now a certified Pilates instructor. But like, what's
Work it
next?
soon to be,
Okay,
hopefully.
okay,
Um, right now I'm adjusting to having three pets
okay,
and uh, growing the business. I've nothing really competitive on the agenda. I'm sure I'll think of something. I'd like to, dabble in some bike racing, maybe next summer, road biking. But for now, just kind of like training for life and trying to grow my business, kind of make that my challenge at the moment, is because it's kind of in a sweet spot of new people are coming in the door every week, whereas before it'd be like a new person every 6 months. So
that's so cool though.
yeah.
Okay, final question. If you could go back and talk to young MK in high school, what would you
Ooh.
tell her?
Oh, I would tell her that just don't be afraid of who you are. Own it. Just be it. Live it. Breathe
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Be authentic.
Be authentic.
Hmm.
And it's a really hard thing to do. Really,
Hmm.
really hard.
Hmm.
But it's worth the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, MK, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your story and being so vulnerable, for being a role model to me in college and today, like every day since, and to hopefully all of the young athletes out there, or really an athlete at any age who might be struggling with something like this. Thank you for talking about such a tough topic of conversation. I really hope that in sharing this, we can lighten the burden that someone else might feel, and that they can feel the courage and the bravery to reach out to someone, to talk about this or to share what they are going through. So I just really appreciate you and your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story. And I hope that even amidst all my ramblings, that people were able to find some comfort in knowing that it's a real thing, and you're by no means you're not alone.
Absolutely. You're not alone. Thanks, MK.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Extra Blue, and thank you so, so much, MK, for sharing your story. It takes so much bravery and courage to share something like this. It does not solve someone else's situation, but MK and I do both hope that the awareness can help athletes feel brave enough to share it with someone they love and trust. That coaches will respect the athlete enough to speak up on their behalf. That a teammate is courageous enough to lend an ear to listen or a shoulder to lean on. or that a parent is patient enough to keep believing in the healing process. If you are struggling with disordered eating or know someone who is, we both really encourage you to reach out for help. There is a list of resources in the show notes of this episode. I sincerely hope that this can help you take the next step toward recovery. MK and I are sending so much love to your corner of the world.